The courtroom was packed. Every seat was taken and dozens of reporters lined the back, their cameras flashing and microphones raised, hoping to catch every word. The case had captivated the nation, a high-profile corruption trial involving one of the most powerful businessmen in America. But no one could have predicted that today's proceedings would take such a shocking turn. Pam Bondi, the formidable U.S. Attorney General under President Donald Trump, sat at the prosecution table, her sharp eyes fixed on the defendant. She had built her career taking down criminals, and this case was no different. But today, something unusual accompanied her. At her feet, lying calmly on a small cushion, was a golden retriever named Justice. It was rare for an attorney to bring a dog into court, but Justice wasn't just any dog, he was a certified legal companion, trained to assist in high-pressure trials. The judge had granted special permission for him to be present. The defense attorney, William Hargrove, was a seasoned litigator with a reputation for turning cases around at the last moment. His client, billionaire real estate tycoon Robert Kingsley, sat beside him, looking every bit the arrogant mogul he had always been. The trial had been going on for weeks, but today was critical, the moment when Kingsley himself would testify in his own defense. As the judge, the Honorable Richard Calloway, entered, the courtroom fell silent. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Everyone stood as Judge Calloway took his seat, his face stern. "Be seated," he said, scanning the room. His gaze lingered on Pam Bondi for a moment before shifting to the defendant. "Proceed." Hargrove stood confidently and adjusted his tie. "Your Honor, the defense calls Robert Kingsley to the stand." Gasps murmured through the courtroom. This was it. The moment the entire country had been waiting for. Kingsley, who had denied all allegations of bribery and fraud, would finally speak under oath. The billionaire took the stand, straightening his expensive suit as he settled into the witness chair. He raised his right hand. "I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth," he said, his voice steady. Pam Bondi watched him carefully. Hargrove began, his tone smooth. "Mr. Kingsley, the prosecution has accused you of funneling millions into offshore accounts to avoid federal taxes. What do you have to say about these allegations?" Kingsley chuckled. "They're absurd. I am a law-abiding businessman. I don't need to hide money overseas. Everything I own is right here in the United States." Pam's expression remained unreadable, but under the table her hand twitched slightly. Justice, her golden retriever, perked up. His ears pricked forward and his tail twitched just once before he settled again. The questioning continued for another 30 minutes, with Kingsley denying every charge. Hargrove skillfully led him through each point, making him seem like a victim of political persecution. Then it was Bondi's turn. She rose slowly, adjusting her blazer, and walked toward the witness stand. "Mr. Kingsley," she said, her voice calm but firm, "you claim to have never used offshore accounts. Can you explain why we found multiple transactions linked to shell companies in the Cayman Islands under your name?" Kingsley smirked. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Pam nodded. "Interesting." She took a step back. Then, without warning, she made a barely perceptible motion with her fingers, just a small, subtle flick of her right hand. Justice, the golden retriever, immediately straightened. His eyes locked onto Kingsley. And then something incredible happened. The dog let out a low, rumbling growl. The entire courtroom froze. Judge Calloway leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Ms. Bondi, what just happened?" Pam Bondi folded her hands together, her gaze never leaving Kingsley. "Your Honor, I believe we just witnessed something very important." The room was silent, waiting for her to continue. And then Kingsley started to sweat. A hush fell over the courtroom. Everyone's eyes darted between Pam Bondi, her golden retriever Justice, and Robert Kingsley, who had suddenly started shifting uncomfortably in his chair. The low growl from Justice had been brief, so brief that most might have dismissed it as nothing more than an instinctive reaction. But Pam Bondi knew better. And more importantly, Judge Richard Calloway knew better. "Ms. Bondi," the judge said, his voice slow and deliberate, "was that a trained response?" Pam nodded, her expression unreadable. "Your Honor, Justice is not just a courtroom companion. He has undergone extensive training in behavioral analysis. He is capable of detecting micro-expressions, changes in heart rate, and even stress-induced pheromones." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. This was unheard of. Robert Kingsley scoffed, attempting to regain his composure. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, shifting in his seat. "Are we seriously letting a dog dictate legal proceedings now?" Pam Bondi didn't respond to him. Instead, she turned to the judge. "Your Honor, may I proceed with my questioning?" Judge Calloway hesitated for a moment before nodding. "You may proceed, but be very careful, Ms. Bondi." Pam turned back to Kingsley, stepping closer to the witness stand. "Mr. Kingsley, let's try this again. You claimed earlier that you had no offshore accounts, correct? Kingsley straightened, lifting his chin. That's right. Pam slowly reached into her briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. Then can you explain why we have multiple signed bank statements showing transactions from Kingsley Holdings to an account in the Cayman Islands? She placed the documents on the stand in front of him. Kingsley's eyes flickered, his confidence wavering for a split second. And in that moment, Pam made another subtle movement with her fingers. Justice, the golden retriever, reacted instantly. His ears perked up and he let out another low, almost imperceptible growl. The courtroom collectively held its breath. Judge Calloway's gavel slammed down. Hold it right there. Everyone froze. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked directly at Bondi. Ms. Bondi, are you telling me this dog can detect when someone is lying? Pam tilted her head slightly. Justice doesn't react to just any statement, Your Honor. He reacts when someone shows physiological signs of deception. Increased heart rate, shallow breathing, a shift in pheromones caused by anxiety. He has been trained to recognize these cues and respond accordingly. A pin-drop silence stretched across the courtroom. The defense attorney, William Hargrove, shot to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. This is absurd. We cannot allow a dog to serve as some kind of lie detector in a court of law. Pam remained perfectly calm. I agree, Mr. Hargrove. The court does not rely on a dog's instincts for legal rulings. But justice is simply confirming what the evidence already shows, that Mr. Kingsley is lying. She turned back to Kingsley. So, Mr. Kingsley, do you still stand by your statement that you have no offshore accounts? The billionaire's face was red now. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He was cornered. Justice sat perfectly still at Pam's feet, watching him. The entire courtroom waited. Kingsley swallowed hard. His hands gripped the edges of the witness stand. He looked to his attorney for help, but even Hargrove had no words. Pam leaned in just slightly. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The air was thick with tension. Then Kingsley did something no one expected. He slammed his hand down on the stand and blurted out, I want a deal. Gasps erupted across the room. Pam Bondi didn't move. She merely exchanged a glance with Justice, then looked back at the judge. Your Honor, she said smoothly, I believe the defense has something to discuss. Judge Calloway leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. We are taking a recess. Court is adjourned for now. He banged his gavel and the courtroom erupted into chaos. Pam knelt down, giving Justice a gentle scratch behind his ears. Good boy, she whispered. Justice wagged his tail. But Pam knew this was only the beginning. The courtroom was in chaos. Reporters scrambled to type breaking news headlines, whispering frantically into their phones. Legal analysts were already speculating what Kingsley's sudden request for a deal could mean. Pam Bondi remained calm, watching Robert Kingsley with calculated patience. He was cornered and he knew it. But she wasn't going to let him slip away so easily. William Hargrove, Kingsley's attorney, was already deep in a hushed argument with his client. Robert, you can't just blurt out something like that. Hargrove hissed, gripping Kingsley's arm. You're making yourself look guilty. Kingsley wiped a hand across his forehead, his usual arrogance stripped away. I don't care, he muttered. She has the evidence. And that dog, he glanced nervously at Justice, who sat calmly beside Bondi. I don't know how, but that thing knew. Hargrove exhaled sharply. He turned to Bondi, his expression rigid. My client spoke out of turn. There is no deal on the table. Pam smiled, slow and deliberate. Oh, but there will be. She leaned in slightly. Because here's what's going to happen next. We're going to continue this trial and I will systematically dismantle every single lie your client has told under oath. Justice won't even need to move. The evidence alone will bury him. Hargrove opened his mouth to respond, but Bondi wasn't finished. Or, she continued, your client can save himself a whole lot of trouble, maybe even a few decades in prison, by telling me what I really want to know. Silence hung between them. Kingsley swallowed. And what do you want to know? Pam sat down at the prosecution table, gesturing for Kingsley to do the same. The judge had declared a recess, but the tension in the room was still thick. Justice rested his head on his paws, but his golden eyes remained locked onto Kingsley as if silently urging him to make the right choice. Pam folded her hands on the table. We both know you're not the mastermind behind this. You're just a piece of the puzzle. Someone gave you the orders. Someone powerful. I want names. Kingsley hesitated. If I tell you, I'll be signing my own death warrant. Pam raised an eyebrow. That bad? Kingsley exhaled sharply. Worse. Hargrove leaned in. Robert, don't say another word. We need to. I'll testify. Kingsley's voice was firm, but his face was pale. He ignored his attorney's furious whispering. I'll tell you everything I know. Pam tapped her fingers against the table, her eyes narrowing. Good. But we're going to need more than just your word. She motioned toward one of the FBI agents standing near the back of the courtroom. Get a team ready. I want his accounts frozen, his communications tracked, and every piece of evidence tied to his offshore dealings brought in now. The agent nodded and rushed off. Judge Calloway, who had been watching the exchange from his seat, finally spoke. Ms. Bondi, are you suggesting we proceed with a plea bargain? Pam turned to face the judge. Your Honor, I believe Mr. Kingsley has valuable information that could expose something far larger than this trial. But I need to hear what he has to say first. The judge sighed, rubbing his temple. Very well. We'll reconvene in 30 minutes. Don't keep me waiting. As he banged his gavel, Kingsley leaned in, lowering his voice. You're playing a dangerous game, Bondi. Pam smiled, giving Justice a pat on the head. I don't play games, Mr. Kingsley. I win them. 30 minutes felt like an eternity. As the courtroom sat in recess, the air crackled with tension. Pam Bondi sipped her coffee in the break room, her mind racing through the possibilities. If Kingsley was about to spill the truth, she had to be ready for anything. Justice sat by her feet, tail flicking as he watched the door. Pam absently scratched behind his ears, feeling the weight of the moment. You feel it too, huh, buddy? She murmured. Justice didn't move, but Pam could tell he sensed something. Just then, the door creaked open, and one of her FBI contacts, Special Agent Daniel Mercer, strode in. He had a grim look on his face. We have a problem, he said. Pam straightened. What kind of problem? Mercer handed her a tablet. We've been digging into Kingsley's offshore transactions. The money trail doesn't stop in the Cayman Islands. It leads straight to shell companies connected to some very powerful figures in Washington. Pam's eyes flicked across the screen, absorbing the names. Some she had expected. Others? Her jaw tightened. These aren't just power players, she said under her breath. These are people with the resources to make this case disappear. Mercer nodded. And they're already moving. Pam glanced at Justice. The retriever's ears twitched, his body tense. He could sense the shift in her emotions. She exhaled, standing up. Where's Kingsley now? Mercer's lips pressed into a thin line. In a secured witness holding room. But we just got word his attorney, Hargrove, has been making calls. We think they're trying to arrange a way out for him before he can testify. Pam's eyes darkened. Not on my watch. She grabbed her files and strode out of the room, Justice trotting at her side. Back in the courtroom, Kingsley was already seated when she returned. But something was different. He looked nervous, too nervous. His hands fidgeted, his leg bounced slightly under the table. Justice immediately picked up on it. The dog's ears shot up, his tail stiffened. A low whimper escaped his throat. Pam's stomach clenched. She knew that sound. Something was wrong. She turned to the bailiff. Get security on alert. Now. Before the bailiff could react, Kingsley suddenly pushed back from the table. I can't do this, he stammered. I take it back. I don't want to testify. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Pam's expression didn't change. She had seen this before. Someone had gotten to him. Mr. Kingsley, she said calmly, taking a step forward. You just made a deal with the federal government. There's no walking away now. Kingsley shook his head frantically. His face was pale, sweat beading at his forehead. You don't understand. They'll kill me. They'll kill my family. Pam exchanged a glance with Mercer. The agent's expression was grim. Who? She asked, voice steady. Who's threatening you? Before Kingsley could answer, the courtroom doors suddenly burst open. A security officer rushed in, panic written all over his face. Your Honor, we need to evacuate the room now. A stunned silence fell over the courtroom. Judge Calloway banged his gavel. What is the meaning of this? The officer swallowed. There's been a breach. We have an unauthorized vehicle parked outside with no plates. And his voice dropped lower. It's wired. A bomb. Panic erupted in the courtroom. People scrambled from their seats, shouting and pushing toward the exits. Pam reacted instantly. FBI, secure Kingsley, she shouted, her hand flying to her concealed firearm. Everyone move in an orderly fashion. Now. Mercer was already on his radio. We need bomb disposal, ASAP. Amidst the chaos, Justice remained perfectly still, eyes locked onto Kingsley. The dog hadn't moved a muscle, as if waiting for something. Pam knew better than to ignore him. She turned to Kingsley, who looked like he was about to bolt. She raised a brow. You knew about this, didn't you? Kingsley didn't respond, but his expression told her everything. Pam Bondi clenched her jaw. She had been right, this went far deeper than anyone had realized. And someone was willing to kill to keep the truth buried. Back in the courtroom, Kingsley was already seated when she returned. But something was different. He looked nervous, too nervous. His hands fidgeted, his leg bounced slightly under the table. Justice immediately picked up on it. The dog's ears shot up, his tail stiffened. A low whimper escaped his throat. Pam's stomach clenched. She knew that sound. Something was wrong. She turned to the bailiff. Get security on alert. Now. Before the bailiff could react, Kingsley suddenly pushed back from the table. I can't do this, he stammered. I take it back. I don't want to testify. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Pam's expression didn't change. She had seen this before. Someone had gotten to him. Mr. Kingsley, she said calmly, taking a step forward. You just made a deal with the federal government. There's no walking away now. Kingsley shook his head frantically. His face was pale, sweat beading at his forehead. You don't understand. They'll kill me. They'll kill my family. Pam exchanged a glance with Mercer. The agent's expression was grim. Who? She asked, voice steady. Who's threatening you? Before Kingsley could answer, the courtroom doors suddenly burst open. A security officer rushed in, panic written all over his face. Your Honor, we need to evacuate the room now. A stunned silence fell over the courtroom. Judge Calloway banged his gavel. What is the meaning of this? The officer swallowed. There's been a breach. We have an unauthorized vehicle parked outside with no plates. And his voice dropped lower. It's wired. A bomb. Panic erupted in the courtroom. People scrambled from their seats, shouting and pushing toward the exits. Pam reacted instantly. FBI, secure Kingsley, she shouted, her hand flying to her concealed firearm. Everyone move in an orderly fashion. Now. Mercer was already on his radio. We need bomb disposal, ASAP. Amidst the chaos, Justice remained perfectly still, eyes locked onto Kingsley. The dog hadn't moved a muscle, as if waiting for something. Pam knew better than to ignore him. She turned to Kingsley, who looked like he was about to bolt. She raised a brow. You knew about this, didn't you? Kingsley didn't respond, but his expression told her everything. The courtroom was in chaos. Judges, lawyers, and spectators rushed toward the exits as the security officer's words sank in. There was a bomb. Pam Bondi remained still, her mind working at lightning speed. Justice, her ever-faithful golden retriever, hadn't moved either. His sharp gaze remained fixed on Robert Kingsley, who looked pale and desperate. Pam took a step closer to him. Who sent the bomb, Kingsley? He swallowed hard, his eyes darting around the room. I don't know. Justice let out a sharp bark. One. Then another. Pam narrowed her eyes. Justice knows when someone's lying, Kingsley. Try again. The man's hands clenched into fists. He was trapped. He knew it. Before he could speak, Special Agent Mercer's voice crackled through the radio. Bomb squad is securing the perimeter. No detonator signal detected yet. Pam turned to the judge. Your Honor, I request immediate protective custody for Mr. Kingsley and lockdown procedures for this courthouse. No one leaves until we know exactly who's behind this. Judge Calloway, still gripping his gavel, gave a sharp nod. Approved. Officers, secure the exits. The doors slammed shut as armed guards moved in. Pam faced Kingsley again, her voice ice cold. Time's up. You either tell me the truth right now or you go down as the fall guy. Your choice. He hesitated. But when he looked at Justice, something in his resolve cracked. It was him, Kingsley finally whispered. The one who arranged everything. The money laundering, the offshore accounts, the intimidation. Pam clenched her jaw. Who? Kingsley's voice was barely audible. Senator Charles Whitmore. The entire room fell silent. Pam barely blinked, but inside her mind raced. Senator Whitmore, one of the most powerful figures in Washington. A man with deep connections in politics, law enforcement, and finance. If he was behind this, then the corruption went far higher than she'd anticipated. She turned to Mercer. Get this recorded. Kingsley is officially turning state's witness. Mercer nodded, already signaling the agents in the room. But before anyone could act, boom! The explosion rocked the building. Dust and debris rained down as alarms blared through the courthouse. Screams filled the air. Pam hit the ground instinctively, shielding her head. Justice pressed close to her, his body tense. Through the smoke, she heard Mercer shouting into his radio. We've been compromised. The bomb was a diversion. Repeat, the bomb was a diversion. Pam struggled to her feet, coughing through the dust. Where's Kingsley? She turned and her stomach dropped. Kingsley was gone. Blood smeared the floor where he had been. The security detail was unconscious, taken out by someone fast and professional. The entire situation had been a setup. Pam's grip on Justice's leash tightened. They knew, she murmured. They knew he was going to talk. Mercer ran up beside her. We have to move. Now. Pam nodded. We need to track Kingsley. They won't kill him yet, not until they're sure he didn't leave a paper trail. She looked down at Justice. The golden retriever was already sniffing the air, his ears twitching. Pam knelt down. Find him, Justice. The dog barked once and took off. Pam and Mercer sprinted after him, weaving through the wreckage. Every second counted. If they didn't find Kingsley soon, the case and the biggest corruption scandal in American history would be buried forever.